Thank you so much for joining Sharebird's The Essential Go-to-Market Show, tips and strategies where we offer short video content and interview-style conversations with global product marketing leaders. I'm your host, Yasmin Tarehi. Now, whether you're an early-stage startup or a public company, almost everyone struggles with the same question. What does it take to have a successful product launch? Today, I'll be talking to Jeffrey Vocell, the Director of Product Marketing at Iterable, the leading cross-channel platform powering unified and memorable customer experiences. And prior to Iterable, Jeffrey helped grow HubSpot for about 6 years. He's also a host of the Product Marketing Experts podcast and an avid 90s action movie fan. So welcome to the show, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much for having me, Yasmin. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. I was just telling Jeffrey before we started that I'd heard really great things about Iterable. And so I'm super excited to dive in and talk to him about his experience. So Jeffrey, can you talk to us about some of the top learnings and takeaways that you've experienced when it comes to launching a product successfully in market?
Yeah, first of all, any product launch that's notable in the marketplace is just a massive undertaking. And for PMMs, it's really like our Super Bowl, right? Today is the day Apple launched the new iPhone 13. And I imagine the product marketers there are celebrating and hopefully they're patting themselves on the back a little bit. It seemed like an incredible event. I wasn't able to watch all of it, but for any product marketer, it's kind of our Super Bowl for any football fans out there, at least. And that's one thing that I think a lot of product marketers miss from the conversations I have, at least, is they miss that initial research and starting with the market, really. And it shouldn't be this approach where we try to fit the market into what we've already built. It really should be this market-led process where we understand what are the buyer's pain points, what does the market truly need, and how do we position our product to really fit that need in a big way. A lot of product marketers along the spectrum of seniority either skip that step or maybe feel they already know the market or whatever the case may be. They kind of gloss over that step, and I think it gets them into trouble a little bit later on. And so I always encourage my team here at Iterable, and certainly did a lot of it at HubSpot too, put in the work up front. It's not the most fun product marketing work you probably do. I mean, for some folks, they really enjoy research, and all the more power to you, but it's going to pay dividends in the long run.
Amen. Yeah, it's so interesting because it seems like it's something that a lot of companies don't really want to invest in because it oftentimes doesn't have a very hard metric associated with it because there's a lot of qualitative responses as well as quantitative. So I'm curious, maybe 2 follow-up questions from that is, how do you prove to senior leadership teams that you need to do this type of work? Like, how do you show these teams the value of it later on? And how do you bake it into kind of like a process over time? Because what often happens, and most companies, I think that there's a lot of research. Patrick Campbell actually did a lot of research on this. And he said that most companies are not actually doing research right now. Yep. And even though they say they are, it's like one product manager who's talking to one customer and right. They've said that they're doing customer research. They know exactly
checking that box.
They're checking the box.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to it being like a living, breathing thing that gets shared. And of course, with all the competing priorities, I imagine it's definitely hard to justify. So I know I asked a lot of questions, so feel free to pick one of the several that I just asked.
Yeah, totally. So proving ROI of even just an entire product marketing team can be difficult. And a market research, it just adds a layer of complexity there. One thing that I like to try to really connect it into is the fact that there are so many potential outputs or so many directions you can go with that research. It can turn into things like content on your blog or even demand generation type content, such as quote unquote, the state of marketing type content that you generate leads from. And there is obviously ROI directly with that type of content. That content can then naturally tie into your positioning or launch activities that tie these programs together as well. And so I think proving some of the ROI of these activities can come down to the activities that you plan for it versus in the research itself, because it's hard to justify saying, oh, we're going to run a survey or a few surveys and we promise it's going to pay off. But if you show an executive or a functional leader what you're actually going to do with that, I think it's fairly easy to prove how that can actually turn into revenue or whatever the metric is that you're really trying to justify.
Awesome. And I'm just curious, was that the same also at HubSpot? I'm sure that HubSpot does a lot of market validation, or maybe not.
Yeah. So HubSpot has two research teams, or I should say did, at least while I was there. And I believe it's still the case. They had one specific research team that was a part of product marketing. And we did a lot of market research, a lot of market surveys. And that team specifically drove a lot of the quote unquote state of type reports, the state of customer service, the state of marketing, all of the research that really went behind a lot of our positioning and our messaging. They drove a lot of that. The secondary research team was this team specifically within product that did not only UX research in terms of like, does this button deserve to be here? And like, does this flow make sense in the UI? But also just broader UI UX research in the broader MarTech space as well. And thankfully, HubSpot is an incredibly transparent culture and organization. And we worked really well together across those two kind of research arms. And we constantly shared insights and knowledge that we got from the research that we were doing. So we could inform each other for net new surveys or different things that we were all doing in our respective groups. So it fed off of one another rather than have this sense of competing priorities or, one group was better than the other or anything like that. There was really none of that. It was kind of feeding off and building off of one another and the research we were all doing.
Oh, that's really great. Yeah. And not all companies have that. So that's awesome. You had that experience. So Jeffrey, I want to actually switch gears and talk a little bit about team and specifically the teams that you rely on most as a product marketer. I know, people answer this differently depending on whether they're B2B, B2C. And I think for those maybe who don't know Iterable's value proposition or how it works, maybe you could share that before answering the question about team, because that also helps people contextualize the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So Iterable fits into the broader customer engagement and customer experience landscape where we provide this cross-channel customer engagement software that helps really large companies like Zillow, Redfin, and so many others, not only in finance, but certainly a lot of verticals as well, reach their customers across any channel they're really on. So not just email, but you can send SMS. If you have an app, I love the Redfin app personally. And so I'm constantly browsing for real estate and can use Iterable to send messages within the app itself. If you're on the web, I can use it to send web push notifications. So you can essentially send messages across all of these distinct channels and build intelligence on that customer to form a deeper relationship. And that can power a whole lot of things, personalization and a whole lot more. And so we really are kind of a B2B2C company in a lot of ways. We sell into B2C companies. We also sell into B2B companies that are growing their kind of customer database very, very quickly, or who are establishing a B2C arm of their organization. But we work with a lot of companies, large and small, who are really, really fast growing and who need to fundamentally reach their customers across all of these channels. So with that in mind, the obvious answer to who product marketing works with is product, right? Or maybe the triangle that we see everywhere in product marketing, which is product marketing. So the obvious answer is that kind of triangle, but it's a lot more than that. You could add CS to that group. You could add operations. I personally have been working a lot with our revenue operations group recently because we've been working on a lot of pricing and packaging initiatives, for example, and product marketing at Iterable owns pricing and packaging. It's a lot of these groups that can actually fill in the picture. And for product marketing to truly be this like strategic glue at the center of the organization, we also need to be able to zoom out and work with functional leaders across the business and not just marketing, sales, and product. Now, to be clear, I do think it's very, very important to have very deep relationships with marketing, product, and sales. And so I would spend a lot of your time there if you are a product marketing leader or up and coming in product marketing or just getting into product marketing. But that being said, I wouldn't only spend.
Yeah, I agree with all the above. And it's just interesting because I think building relationships is very different depending on where you are within the company and also how much of an influence product marketing is on the marketing funnel, right? Like if you're working with top of funnel, you're going to have probably different exposure to different teams. If you're focusing more on lower funnel, it's just, it really depends. So I also wanted to make sure that you contextualize that. So thank you for doing that.
Of course, yeah. One thing I like to tell, especially the more senior folks on my team, is you should be like the CMO of your product line. And you should be able to zoom out a little bit and say, for my specific product area or product line, what's the gap here? What's missing? Is it top of the funnel content? Is it bottom of the funnel enablement, competitive intelligence, whatever the case may be? But what's kind of missing here? And that's what we all can ask ourselves in product marketing, a lot of cases, whether you're leading the entire function leading product marketing for a product line, contributing to a product, like whatever the case may be, that's something we can all ask ourselves. And that will also lead us to interact with a lot of different folks across the organization.
Yes, completely agree. So Jeffrey, we are at time. So as most people know, these are short video content interviews. But before we go, I'd love for you to share what your major takeaway is for people that might be leaning into product marketing for the first time, or might be interested in also moving up the product marketing ladder and maybe owning that function for a company. What do you want to tell them about the function? I guess, like, what has been the best of product marketing for you and the worst, maybe the worst of product marketing for you? Because I think there is definitely a shadow side that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah, I'll give you a few things. First, if you're up and coming in product marketing and you have aspirations to lead the function, focus on the fundamentals, nail the fundamentals. All too often, and by the way, I did this certainly in my career earlier on, but I got over my skis a little bit too much, so to speak. I just wanted to be a senior PMM or principal. I just wanted to be more senior, right? And grow my career, and kind of lost sight of some of the fundamentals of nailing go-to-market strategy, really understanding how the business worked and the business model, and like what the acquisition funnel looked like, how we were selling, all of that stuff. That can teach us so much, whether you're a director or VP of PMM or brand new to product marketing. And that can really teach us an incredible amount. So focus on the fundamentals, I would say, first and foremost. Secondly, there's definitely a kind of a shadow side to product marketing, especially in earlier stage companies. So I joined HubSpot just prior to the IPO. Here at Iterable, we are a Series E company now. I joined before the Series E, but we're still very cross-functional and have a lot of competing priorities. And so as I think about product marketing right now, one of those shadow sides is being able to really effectively draw boundaries around product marketing. We can't do everything. We can't be everything to everyone. And being able to effectively draw those boundaries in a way where you're not drawing them too tight so that you're cutting off potential growth in the future for not only yourself, but your team, and also ensuring that you're providing the most strategic value for the company is incredibly important. I don't really have a secret way of doing that. If anybody does have a secret way, please tell me. Really, honestly, the best thing you can do is talk to a whole bunch of folks and socialize where you're thinking about drawing those boundaries.
Oh, yeah. That is really, really powerful. I love that, because most product marketers have been faced with that situation, right? There's so many requests, especially if you're in the B2B space. A lot of sales teams, it seems like there's a never-ending number of requests, which feels very reactive rather than being proactive and creating the strategy and shepherding that forward. So, you're right. You don't want to create like too much of a wall and a moat, because then it makes it difficult for people to actually work on bigger initiatives or things down the pipeline. So I always say, like, deprioritizing things, if we need to prioritize something new, also works really well. Like, not just saying no, but saying, let's work together and look at all the things we have going on, and maybe deprioritize the things that we shouldn't be paying attention to, just because there's so few resources usually available for product marketing. We can do everything, but we also don't have the space to do everything. I was speaking to someone earlier, another head of product marketer, who said, you own nothing, but you influence everything.
100% agree with that. Yeah, I love that. And that's a phrase I use all the time too.
I love that. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your time. And where can people find you?
Thank you so much for having me, Yasmin. It was a pleasure to speak with you. And yeah, I mean, everyone can find me on Twitter. It's just at Jeffrey Vocell, my full name, and on LinkedIn as well. So thank you so much for having me, and feel free to reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn or anywhere else. I'm happy to have a conversation about product marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And stay tuned for upcoming shows with product marketing leaders from startups to public companies, as they share some of their best tips and strategies on go-to-market. And send us a note. Tell us what you learned. Tag us, tag Jeffrey, tag Iterable. And for those of you who are looking for more material on go-to-market, you can also check out my book, Product Marketing Debunked, on Amazon, or my second book, which just launched, called The Launch, A Product Marketer's Guide. Thanks again.